That's my cue. The recording is in progress. Hi, everyone. I'm Eddie Watson. I'm the Vice President for Digital Innovation at the American Association of Colleges and Universities, better known as AACNU. And I have my collaborator and colleague here today, Heather Miceli. Heather, you want to say a quick hello and what you do?
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Miceli. I'm a postdoc research fellow in Eddie's office.
So there's several sort of points of triangulation that brought us to this session today. I mean, you may recognize AACNU as the organization that has led the Institute on Open Educational Resources for the past 5 years. It's a program that's designed to provide opportunities for a campus to think about how to instantiate OER adoption. So it's not for individuals, but you send a team. And so there's a lot of work across offices to bring about OER adoption. So we've seen a lot of really good work about how do you bring OER forward on a campus through that project. But we also have a Hewlett-funded grant project right now that's looking at student success metrics and how broader adoption on campus can bring forward an array of different student success outcomes. And through sort of the triangulation of those projects, and specifically from that Hewlett-funded project, we have 4 campuses represented on this panel to really sort of respond to and describe how they have been able to have success on their campus around OER adoption. So with that said, we're going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves to begin with, and then we will, Heather and I will begin to pepper them with questions for the next little while. But Arenthia, online, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Arenthia Herren. I am the OER librarian down at Florida Southwestern State College, which is why I am virtual right now. I've got shutters up and preparing for Milton to make its way towards us.
Thanks, Arenthia. What commitment, really, I mean, to be here right now. Chelsea.
Yeah, hello, Chelsea James. I'm with Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm the OER director.
Hi, I'm Emily Ragan. I'm a professor in chemistry and biochemistry at Metropolitan State University of Denver, and I'm also chair of our OER task force.
Good morning. I'm Micah Gjeltema. I'm the Open Education and Affordable Content Librarian at the University of Minnesota, working in the Twin Cities.
Okay, so first thing we'd like each of our panelists to do, starting with Arenthia and going down the line, is could you just give us a brief description of OER adoption on your campus?
Sure. So a little bit of background on my campus quickly is we are a mainly AA granting institution, though we are a state college and offer 4-year degrees, mainly in workforce type degrees. So most of our OER adoption has happened within our general ed degree program. We held an OER institute, I guess it's been 2 years ago now. And our biggest triumph out of that was we were able to get our Composition 1 class, which is our largest enrollment class, to move over to OER. So we've had a lot of success with getting our students moving through the gen ed program, hopefully eventually with a totally free, textbook free costs.
Yeah, so Pima Community College is a 2-year associate's degree institution with a lot of applied tech certificates. And we really started with our online courses. And during pandemic, it was, increased our online enrollment. And so that really increased our adoptions. And we've started with our large enrollment courses that could impact the most students, and have actually been able to implement a lot of strategic planning around OER within our strategic plan and our chancellor's goals to further that adoption, and then hiring an OER director to keep going with that. So it's really an institution-wide impact, I guess.
MSU Denver is a regional 4-year school. We have a handful of master's programs, but we're mostly an undergraduate institution. And the state of Colorado started having grant funding for public institutions of higher education starting in 2019. And being able to get those grants and start to offer faculty stipends really has dramatically increased the number of courses using OER. Some of our earlier wins were in communication studies courses, those 1,000 level like presentational speaking courses that are very high enrollment. And over the years, we've had some general studies math courses adopt OER, and those have been long multi-semester efforts, but are starting to really pay off in terms of high student enrollment and a lot of impact on students.
At the University of Minnesota, we have about 50,000 students enrolled. Like many institutions, I think we have really great pockets where we have some disciplines that are using, things like OpenStax, stuff like that. It's difficult for us to track really specifically adoption rates because we don't do course marking and things like that. Wish we did, but we do get to dedicate a lot of our time to OER creation efforts as well through OER grant programs. That's been really rewarding. At our university, I'm the open education librarian, but I'm organized into essentially the course materials department. So it's very useful to be there and kind of work with that team where, we get to be responsive to a lot of faculty as they put together their materials, course by course, have questions about what's available, what is practical, and we're able to really kind of push them towards more affordable options. Sometimes that's OER wherever we can, but also really urging them to communicate with us and let us get them, unlimited license ebooks and things like that. So we do see that as kind of a common initiative as we work towards adoption. But yes, anytime we can, we really try to sell the benefits of open educational resources and push our faculty towards those options.
Okay, thank you all for those brief introductions to your campuses and the work that you're doing. I guess, Emily, I'd like to start with you. A lot of the work around OER is driven by individuals, but I guess I'm more curious about what kind of institutional supports you've seen on your campus that have supported sort of high impact OER implementation.
It really began with our instructional design team, and that's how I got into OER back in 2015. I was doing a course redesign for general chemistry to put it online, and the instructional designer I worked with was very influential. And without me knowing really what OER was, I created an OER course. And so the instructional design team works with faculty on about 30 to 35 courses a semester, and they really encourage faculty to consider OER, and they support faculty in the OER adoption when possible. So that's really important. And then another prong has been, since we've been able to get those state OER grants, we've been able to offer stipends for faculty to participate in a range of trainings, starting from a $200 stipend for open textbook review workshops run in the style of the Open Education Network, to $500 stipends for attending a semester-long faculty learning community. And I was even able to start those before we had that state grant funding because my institution has a culture of faculty learning communities, and faculty will participate in those even without a stipend. So that was maybe one of the earliest things. And what I've found is the relationships that develop from the faculty learning communities are really powerful. And people who have participated in those faculty learning communities have then gone on to do some really high impact projects in OER.
Okay, and the next question is for Arenthia. What have been some of the most helpful partnerships you've had with other departments on your campus in supporting faculty in the adoption of OER?
Yeah, so I'll just piggyback and say that the instructional design team have been superstars in helping with the OER adoption on our campus. And also beyond the instructional designers, the Office of Accessibility Adaptive Services has been extraordinarily helpful in making sure that those materials, especially in the online education realm, but because OER mostly lives right in the digital world, making sure that those things are accessible in ways that I, as just the OER librarian, wouldn't be familiar with, especially as we're seeing, the new ADA recommendations coming out for digital materials. It's really important to work with those people that are in that Office of Accessibility because they can really help prevent issues before they happen. And then also the staff assistants for the individual departments have been tremendously helpful because if anyone knows who's designing a new course, when a course is up for a redesign, what faculty are interested in doing what, it's those staff assistants in the department. And they can be so helpful in getting your kind of foot in the door because they know it all. And they're often so excited to have someone to be interested in helping them out with textbook things. So I highly recommend getting to know those staff assistants for your departments, as well as your Office of Adaptability.
Thanks for that, Arenthia. It kind of reminds me, when you see initiatives really work on campus, you have that kind of support structure like she was describing, sort of like the bottom-up support for this work. But really, you want to have a synergy where there's this bottom-up support and this top-down support. So I guess, Chelsea, I'm just curious, how were you able to secure that buy-in from your upper administration? And then once you had that buy-in, like how did they enact that? Like what did you see as their role in supporting your OER adoption?
Yeah, so we were really lucky that we had some champions at top administrative levels that really helped kind of make a cohesive plan around OER and be able to implement that. And I think that the biggest thing for admin is seeing a connection to our bigger goals. Our mission is quality, affordable, and equitable education. And there's a direct connection to OER. And so by making those kinds of dotted lines, solid lines to our admin, we had one in particular I'm thinking about who was able to really take that goal of OER and in those bigger top meetings, be able to convince other administrators that this is where we should put a lot of our effort. This is going to help us achieve our goals because we do have a lot of initiatives. I always think like we have initiative fatigue. And so really, if you have an administrator who says, this is the thing that's going to help us, it really, it really helps to be able to take the different departments, our Center for Learning and Technology and our Teaching and Learning Center and our faculty departments able at that higher level to say, hey, we want to do this and connect those dots so that we could come and do the work from faculty and staff side, right? And then through those conversations, we were able to implement OER is written in our strategic plan. It was one of our chancellor's goals. We ended up applying for a grant, and I'll talk about that later with the student perspective as well. But from that admin level, we were able to get funding for a little while to support faculty in redesigning their courses. And so that structural support had to come from the top, I think.
Thanks, Chelsea. The next question is again for Arenthia. We know because of that institutional support, we have to get the professional development rolling for faculty on campus. So I'd like you to speak to some of the professional development opportunities that your faculty have on your campus.
Yeah, so one of the biggest opportunities that our faculty have to be introduced to OER is through what we call DEV 101, or we call it Dev 101. And it's a requirement for any faculty that's looking to create an online course at our institution. And it has 3 different modules. One deals with quality matters, so they learn those standards. Another one is through our Office of Accessibility and Adaptability, so they learn how to make their online courses accessible. And then the third one is one that I developed, which is copyright, fair use, and OER. So it's basically introducing faculty to the Creative Commons licensing, what OER is, some places to look for OER, some ways to integrate OER if you're not going full on with the textbook. I also throw in, like I know Micah said something about, course materials in the library also being helpful and, getting those ebooks with unlimited licensing and things like that. So really giving them all the options that they have to be able to create good online courses that integrate OER into them. We have seen a tremendous uptick in faculty being interested in integrating OER into their online courses because of their experience in Dev 101. They do get paid a stipend. They get paid, I believe it's $300 to complete the training. And then once they're done with that, they can go on, on their way to create these online courses. And our main goal in doing this Dev 101 course was to make sure that our faculty knew kind of who their experts were. We weren't looking for them to learn everything they possibly could about OER or accessibility or quality matters within the short time that we have with them, but they know a friendly face and they know those people to go to when they have questions. And it's been tremendously helpful to be a part of that course design training. I think that's been our biggest success when it comes to OER PD, because you can hold a lot of sessions, right? But you're going to see the same people over and over if you hold them through your teaching and learning centers. And those are going to be the people who maybe know a little bit about what OER is and are interested. But if you can get in with something like a mandatory course development training, you can really hook in some audience that you might be missing otherwise.
That's great, Arenthia. Just sort of like looking for those opportunities where there's structures already in place that you could plug into.
Yeah.
So I was at the University of Georgia before joining AAC&U, and I was the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning there. And as I launched the OER initiative on campus, one of the big challenges that I found where I would go to a faculty member who's teaching a high enrollment course, has an expensive textbook package. It seemed like that was like the right sort of sweet spot, looking for those opportunities. Where I had the greatest challenge was a faculty member that had not just adopted a publisher's textbook, but had adopted the courseware, sort of like the entire ecosystem associated with that textbook. And so moving them away from that, I wasn't terribly successful, to be honest. So Micah, I guess I would love to hear what you've seen as the challenges and the opportunities associated with faculty that had kind of already bought in with everything that the publisher had to offer within the terms of that specific discipline or that textbook or the courseware package. How have you been able to have success in those contexts?
Absolutely. I think that's a very familiar feeling, I think, probably to a lot of us who are kind of urging adoption. And it's really challenging, and you can so understand it, right? I think a lot of our kind of outreach really is speaking to faculty about their time and trying to empathize there and really connect and find options for them to, find what they're comfortable with, but also have room to experiment a little bit, where it's also hard to convince somebody to switch whole cloth from one thing to another. So, sometimes we just promote kind of open educational resources, sometimes on the piecemeal level to kind of supplement some of those kind of packages that they may be using to, just kind of win them over to the ideas. But yes, I think the homework systems aspect is a really difficult challenge. We have at the University of Minnesota been working with colleagues at Northwestern and at Penn State over the last year or so on an IMLS planning grant to investigate the feasibility of offering more open homework systems options to our faculty. And it's been really challenging. It sounds great. Those tools are awesome. It's very cool that so many people are doing work in that area that I think, we all recognize as one of our greatest challenges. But in being able to implement that at an institutional scale is really difficult, where some of the challenges are things that are those kind of second or third level challenges that might not be immediately what you're considering. Things like being able to install some of these tools into an LMS at an institutional level with pretty skeptical IT departments and things like that, where, like my colleague Shane Nackert has had to work quite hard to just kind of get these things kind of on the table to be considered, where sometimes these are maybe even competitive aspects of being able to get our tool in over somebody else's tool. And so that can be a really difficult sort of scenario in which to be advocating for, these open resources. We have been able to secure some pilots for some of these tools, things like, Pressbooks results. We have a tool called Donut that's being developed on our campus and at Ohio State. And we're very excited about that. And we are very kind of, sometimes dispirited by the challenges, but we're very excited to kind of work through these things. This is also a real opportunity to use those relationships that you build with faculty, those allies, those adopters who have kind of been with you. It is a big ask to even kind of consider these pilots. Some of these tools, go live a little bit later than we had hoped they would. So it is really nice to kind of think of that too, I find, even as you think about adoption and kind of making your case, as you build those connections and allies on campus. These are the situations where that really kind of pays off too, to have individuals who, we know in the past have worked through adoption and did a lot of work on that. And we're so grateful. And then they maybe wrote an open textbook with us, and we're so grateful. And we know that was a lot of work. And then now when we need to test open homework systems, we have those allies to go to and be like, hey, remember how difficult everything was in the past? Would you like to do that with us again? And it's been really heartening how often they're like, yes, yeah, we really believe in this. It has been difficult, but we see the value in this activity and the opportunity to really be able to shape that. So that's been, some of these aspects are really challenging, but some of it is really heartening as well about how much people really do want to work with us to make these things viable.
Thank you so much, Micah. My next question is for Chelsea. You already brought them up, but I think sometimes students are forgotten in these conversations at the kind of adoption level. And so I'd like you to speak to the ways that you included students in your OER initiatives and how their feedback and advocacy shaped OER adoption on your campus.
Yes, I love to talk about our students. I do think students are the center and they should be brought to the center of all of this. And students really do have power with faculty, with admin, with everybody, with the entire college. And so we really, and it's an ongoing effort, right? Because we get new students like every year, every 2 years at a community college. But really looking at how the students can unify their voice because they do have power and how do we tell students that they should care about this? Because our students do care. We have a really robust food pantry. We have hygiene pantry. This OER initiative, textbook affordability, really links in with all of those. And so we want to help students see that link to helping our students with, food insecurity, housing insecurity. This not having to pay for textbooks really helps. So how do you get in front of students, especially community college students who might have families and multiple jobs and might be going part-time? So we went to student government. That's always a good place to start. And we, in 2016-17, we got the Achieving the Dream grant. And one of the reasons that we got that is because we involved students. We were the only institution that brought a student to those meetings and had a student speak. And so we've tried to duplicate that. It's hard work. It's a lot of work, right? How do you reach students? I'm one person now in the OER department. This year, I'm trying to, so I have 5 interns actually from the University of Arizona Library School who are piloting we're building a strategic plan on how to reach our students, student awareness and student outreach within the college. And then they're going to go out to the campuses and build some online videos or podcasts or interviews or whatever it is that these interns come up with. We're looking at, using federal work study students to reach out to other students. I think first year experience often does this kind of model where they bring students in to do orientations and connect peer to peer. So working on those kinds of things. In addition, having a ambassador program for our students where they can get credit. So I work with honor students and Phi Theta Kappa, if anybody knows. And so we have a space where they can earn credit to do a project. And so those are some of the things that we try to do. It's a lot of work to have students reach out to other students, but we're try to, I guess, that exponential kind of a network where you talk to one student and they can talk to 10 students, like we do with faculty as well, but really paying attention to students. And then they go and they can ask their teachers, hey, thanks for using OER, or hey, have you heard of OER? Why do I have to pay for this textbook? And that's been really, really powerful for us, and where I'm trying to spend a lot of my attention this year.
That's exciting work. Thanks for sharing. Well, so Mike, I want to come back to you. I was in Nicole Allen's session previously, probably some of you were as well, about inclusive access, equitable access, all of the great euphemisms for the new textbook purchasing models. I guess I'm just curious, how have you seen like the prospect or the potential of equitable access, being within your space? How is that affecting some of the work that you're doing around OER, encouraging faculty for adoption, engaging administrators regarding adoption? So how is equitable access basically acting as a specter in your space, and what kind of influence is it having?
Yeah, great question. At the University of Minnesota, it already has happened. This has been our first semester kind of with an equitable access model that's being called Courseworks. And yeah, it does feel, as the open education librarian, it feels a little personal. Feels like it's kind of out there to squash us a little bit. And it was tough, especially when it was kind of posed kind of as that sort of prospect, as, we feel like a specter perhaps. We even have our initiatives for OER creation and adoption, and yeah, we're building those allyships with some really excellent faculty, and we've had that experience of people kind of coming to us in our usual meetings and being like, hey, I just heard about this. Why am I doing what I'm doing? If this is going to be what this model is, what are we doing here? Which is a hard question to answer sometimes. Luckily, they stuck with us, and because they kind of believe in the ideas. But it can be very challenging to kind of use that as we go forward, still trying to do our work and trying to make our own cases, which we feel like can be parallel and in some cases complementary to these models. And that's kind of been our process as well, is to understand that at some point this is a kind of scholarly or creative kind of elements that we're working with. There are those business elements that we kind of can work through, the student savings and whatnot. But when you're talking at an institutional level, those arguments are not going to be valued kind of as highly. So we just kind of try to do what we're doing and kind of make our case kind of within that system where, within our sort of course materials department, we didn't have a lot of input on the decision making itself as far as what was going to happen. But of course, as far as the implementation goes, we were essential. Libraries are essential, right, to kind of supporting a lot of these initiatives. And so we were able to kind of take advantage of that. My colleague Shane Eckert was really instrumental there as well, of kind of making that case of, hey, we were even kind of given some of that vocabulary from the vendors as it was happening of like, oh, it'll be like a Netflix model, right? And I think we all know how that goes, right? If you get locked in and then the price goes up and up and up every quarter. And so we were able to kind of make that case of, well, you're going to need, some institutional elements built in to try to combat that and try to ensure that this can stay affordable if that is, the message that you're sending. And a lot of that can be done by reducing kind of the overall cost of the books that need to be purchased. So to that end, we think OER adoption, OER creation is actually essential for this model to work. And we can make that case. Not necessarily in a combative way, but hopefully in a complementary way, given that it's already happening. And so kind of to that end, we were even able to negotiate some ideas there where, my colleagues, especially in the course materials department, have been working, so hard to kind of work through this. The implementation has been pretty rocky. And so kind of to those ends, the library work is so essential. And so we can have some, I think, leverage there as well, where we're making the case and kind of negotiating that, like, hey, if there is a flat student fee, that's great and well and good. Perhaps, $4 or $5 of that student fee can come back to our department to support OER adoption, to support OER creation, in the interest of this program working. And I think that's a really great argument, and we've had some success there. So sometimes it feels like something to fight or something to surrender to. I think we've done a really great job of kind of making our case and demonstrating our value to the point where maybe some of these resources can, in fact, become sort of ongoing, predictable funding for OER adoption and creation. So I think there's room to kind of work within that system. I think we all have a really strong argument to make as far as these efforts to go to, reduce costs. Historically, we talk about the student savings, but I think we're also able with these models to talk about institutional savings and the value of OER adoption in that sort of area.
Thank you so much for that, Micah. I think a lot of people relate to that, given how pervasive this inclusive, equitable access is. And I love the balance of not fighting it, but trying to work complementary to it. I think we'll kind of come to a higher point. And Emily, can you give us an example of a high impact OER implementation at your campus?
Okay, I want to briefly highlight two. One was my colleague Andy Kerr, and she presented on this a couple years ago, but she was the former department chair of the nutrition department. She was coordinator of Introduction to Nutrition, and she really was not satisfied with the existing textbooks. So she had attended a faculty learning community. She found a resource on LibreText that was a good starting place. She adapted it to make it much better for her course. She added references, she made it very current, she cut out the fluff, and she really made it into the resource they wanted to use for her students. They had homework questions in our learning management system. This was adopted across all of the sections and super well received. Her colleagues enjoyed using an enhanced resource that was really tailored to the students at our institution. So it's been incredibly high impact. Thousands of students, hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings, even in just like the first year. So that was a super successful project because it was a real subject matter expert using her expertise to make something better for our students. And then we had 4 faculty in psychology work with the instructional design team to create online intro to psych using OpenStack's textbook, but creating a ton of videos with not just those 4 faculty, but faculty from across the department, so that these intro students could get to know faculty across psychology. And that's another case where we leveraged our instructional design team to bring online homework into our learning management system. So again, we're avoiding those costly online homework systems. So those 2 projects, really exciting and are really having a great impact on our students.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing. One of the things that we talked about as we were planning this session was, we've all had quite a bit of success, but it's not like everything has always been rosy and easy. So I think that maybe we could just kind of run down the line. I would love to hear maybe each of you share like one major challenge that you've had, and if you've been able to overcome it, how you were able to overcome it. But Arenthia, would you like to go first, and then we'll just go right down the line?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that we did an OER Institute in which we were able to get 6 courses at our institution to adapt OER textbooks. One of those was our Composition 1 class, which is our highest enrollment course. We used higher ed relief funds. Remember when we had those and it was so wonderful, to be able to give pretty large stipends to our faculty to be able to create these because we knew they were going to have such a high impact. So of course, all of this went through, all of the higher up chains and everything, and they knew what we were doing. But it wasn't until we were done and ready to roll out Comp 1 as an OER class that our CFO realized that was going to impact the money that they were getting from the bookstore on campus because our largest enrollment course was no longer going to be purchasing 2 textbooks. So there was a lot of discussion, we will say, on campus about that, and we were asked to halt any plans we had for further OER development because all of our OER is all of our textbooks OER regardless is all across department. So if the department has to decide that that's what they're going to do, so then every single section of that class is going to do that. So you can imagine that that does have a big impact until they could figure out what to do about the bookstore. So it's been 2 years now, and we've still been kind of told to lay low. We have changed bookstores. They have done that, but we are in the process of changing accreditors now because of some Florida rules that have changed. So they're really focused on that. So I'm just kind of trying to do my best with my little, faculty partners that I have out there that were interested before this happened, and trying to figure out how to help them help their students. So that's been a major kind of setback that we have. And I hope that once things settle down with accreditation, we can start the good campaign again to ramp up some more opportunities to get some more OER adoptions going on a wider scale.
So I think one of the challenges that we've faced has been data collection and getting good data. When we were doing a grant, right? There were people being paid, they were tracking, we knew exactly who is transitioning to OER. But then as this wave of OER started overtaking the college, it became less and less clear about which classes are OER, which classes are using library materials, which classes just have no materials at all. So we're sort of trying to figure out, I know there are a lot more courses that are OER than I have counted, right? And so how do I collect that material? I can tell you which classes now that don't have any materials because I'm working with the bookstore. So I really encourage everybody to make friendships with your bookstore. We use Barnes & Noble, and we have implemented a data share agreement with Barnes & Noble where their data is now pulling into our web systems. So we can see a lot of clear data on which classes are using what. Can't tell quite which ones are OER sometimes versus library materials, which is what I would like to figure out so that I can also, lift up the library. They are impacting our students and faculty a lot, but that's not accounted for. We recently brought in Simple Syllabus, if anybody knows what that is. It's a standardized syllabus software. So I'm looking at ways where we can have a marker in there for faculty when they submit their syllabus to say, well, I'm using this material, this is my primary, this is my secondary, and so I can pull that data. And then also we are very close to having course markers thanks to the bookstore, which will also help us be able to really track that data so it's not so much by hand, right? I want to make a system so if I move on, if funding runs out from my position, we can still have that data to show.
In a recent faculty survey, the largest barrier our faculty reported around OER was not having resources available to them or it taking too much time to find the resources. So continuing to educate faculty on the rapidly expanding growth of OER, that even if there wasn't something 2 years ago, there might be something now, and maybe helping faculty just have easier paths to adoption, I think will have a big impact.
Yeah, I think we're close to time, but yeah, I think our challenges have been kind of those institutional challenges, especially equitable access, I think is the big one. But yeah, again, just kind of being out there, doing our messaging, even as we promote, OER creation, it's wild how often those dollar signs get eyeballs and how many people come to us and say like, hey, like, I don't need the money. I just think it's cool you're doing this. Can we talk about that? And I said, can I hold you to that? And then we kind of have some success there as well. So yeah, I think there's just a variety of communications you can do. And there are so many people who want to be doing this work that it's just important to be available where you can.
And so we want to thank you all and open it up to any questions in the audience. But you have to use the mic so the people on Zoom hear you.
I was gonna say I can do that if you want. And we have 2 minutes until the break, so we're gonna have brief question if we can.
Hi, my name's Alyssa. I'm from the University of Hartford. And I was wondering, we've heard today and in other sessions over the past couple days about bookstores being a big obstacle with taking money away from them, and now about bookstores being a great partner with data collection. And I know everyone on the ground, like librarians and professors, are really interested in saving our students money, but a lot of times administrators are interested in saving the university money or getting the university more money. So is there a way in which OER saves the university money rather than just the students?
Well, better retention of students is a good thing for the university, and there's a lot of great data around retention of students. Also, one way I think the administrators at my institution thought about it is if students are paying less for their textbooks, they can pay more in tuition. So anyway.
Or credit intensity sometimes.
Yeah, they'll take more credits in a semester. Some students will take more credits in the semester if they don't have expensive resources. Yep.
I think we do have to wrap, unfortunately, but as I understand it, Arenthia can stay on the Zoom for a little bit after we break up here. And I think we can all maybe tap the panelists who are here in the room during the break for folks who are here in the room who continue to have questions. And I just want to thank you everyone again for this session. We give everyone a round of applause.